thanks for coming. You all know that this is the guest lecture I was telling you about. Tina's a graduate, graduated last year in indie game development, and he's here to talk to you about how to do IGAD in 4 years, and most importantly, how to some tips and tricks on setting up, planning, and study success for you. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you all for coming. I know this is I think your first day of the next block. It's early, so I'm quite pleased with the turnout. So let's get started and see where we end up. Some minor adjustments here. 1 second. Alright, so who am I? I'm Tino van der Kraan. I graduated here 4 years ago, or I graduated before summer, but I started here 4 years ago. I started my own independent game development company called Festival Studio. We develop games, we provide consultancy on games. We make games for the IGAD, the Android, the iOS, PC games. We love doing game jams, we love doing experimental games. And upcoming Wednesday we also have the release of our latest game on the iOS and Android called Small Bang Theory, so that's something we're pretty excited about as well, especially considering we just graduated. So yeah, I make games. Next slide. Oh. More technical difficulties. So besides making games, in my spare time I also do video performances. I do that in clubs, in venues. I've been doing that since my second year, and since my second year I've been roughly doing that for 2 years now and accumulated over approximately 100 performances. Can everyone see this, by the way? Where is it? Yeah? I've pressed this one before and I blacked out the room, so. Atmosphere. Alright, let's continue. So, why should you listen to anything I have to say? As I mentioned before, 4 years ago I started doing the IGAD course, and 4 years later I graduated, so right on track, only one retake, so hopefully whatever I have to say or share with you might be useful for you in the future. When I first applied for IGAD, I really wanted to do the VA course, the Visual Artist course, but Andrew kindly told me that my art looked like cave drawings and directed me to IGD. So even though that news was unfortunate, it didn't bring me down, and it should let you bring down if you get any negative feedback or anything. Just use it as motivation. There are more ways that lead into the game industry, and IGD is also one of them. In my 4th year, I had the pleasure to also be employed for 6 months here at the NHTV as a DMP teaching assistant, and it gave me a lot of insight in things such as didactics and the grading process. So, as you may have known already from the first blog or the ominous news that you've been getting, IGAD is pretty tough. IGAD has a pretty notoriously high dropout rate, but I think it's for good reason, because the gaming industry requires very skilled and competent employees, and not everyone will be able to meet those high hiring criteria. IGAD tries to prepare you for what you can expect in the industry. You will have to demonstrate yourself, however, but I do think that you have what it takes to make it to the end. I'm just here to give you that extra hand. So the overview of this presentation will go as follows. I'll talk a bit about what you have to do to lead up to your pro-produce or pass your first year, because you're all here in your first year, so the first big deadline is getting past that first year, getting your 54 credits. Preferably your 60, so you can get your pro-produce in your first year, and it's also an achievement unlock. I'll also talk about what happens after the pro-produce, so the remaining 3 years. Some of the study problems that you may encounter along the way, and how to deal with them. Some of the problems I've had along the way, and hopefully some of them will sound familiar, so that my techniques may help you out. A graduation cheat sheet. Just a few rules that if you stick to them, then I'm pretty sure you'll make it to the end. And some other IGAD resources that I've consulted making this presentation, and it should pretty much contain all the information you might ever need, but very detailed. So let me ask you who you are. Designers and production students, DMP, raise your hand. Alright, it's a pretty fair spread. Programmers, raise your hand. Not bad. Artists? Woo! Alright, all of the above, IGD? That's pretty good. It's pretty even. So, another question. Raise your hand if you think that you spend more hours on IGAD than any of the other directions. So if you think that you spend more hours on school than, for example, IGD, or for example, the DPA course. Right? I was expecting a bit more, but I'm pleased to know that you're pretty realistic about this. So let me tell you straight from the get-go. These are screenshots from the IGAD OER, or the Open Educational Resources, and it should be made publicly available. Every high school or every higher education should make these publicly available. And as you can see, all the courses require you to obtain 240 credits in total in order to pass your 4 years of education. So see this as your grand quest to pursue. So ECTS, what does that stand for? Well, it says there on the board. It is a system that the European Union uses to keep track of your academic achievements within the European countries for higher education. And to graduate from any of the IGAD directions, you need to obtain all 40 of them. Hopefully this will also clear any assumptions that the IGAD direction A is more difficult than direction B, for example. Everyone here is on the same track and you will all need to obtain your 240 credits. Right, come in. I don't know if there are any spots available there, so otherwise you might want to sit over there. Alright, so yeah, 240 credits, obtain that for everyone. On a side note, I got 240. So. There were some shifts in our curriculum which forced me to do a 5 credit course instead of 3, but that's a different story. You also see that 1 credit is equivalent to 28 hours of study. And let's take that through a little bit of an overview, some more overview. So, 4 years. That means 240 credits is equal to 6,720 hours. Each year you will have to obtain 60 credits. In your first year, if you want to pass the second year, you will have to obtain at least 54 credits. Preferably get all your 60 credits, so you won't slack behind, or you won't have the snowballing effect that all the courses will sort of pile up on you at the end of the year. So try to stay on track. In your second year, you will have another 60 credits to obtain. You can obtain the remaining credits that you're missing from your first year if you do not have all these 60 credits yet. In your third year, it's a bit of a shift. You will no longer only be doing courses, you will also be doing something called a specialization phase. You will only be allowed to do that if you are no more than 6 credits behind. There should be some more seats there. So the third year is a bit of a split. It's partially courses, partially specialization phase, and in the last year, it will be a 50-50 split between internship, so work placement, and your graduation phase, which should be like a graduation project. And you're not allowed to have any credit deficit in order to start that one, so keep that in mind. Let's take this through a little bit of math. If 1 year is equal to 1,680 hours, and in 1 year are 4 blocks, we divide that by 4, so 1 block is then equal to 420 hours. In 1 block you have 9 weeks of school, so there would be 7 weeks of courses, 1 study week and 1 exam week. This may vary, by the way. So 1 week would be equivalent to 46.666, etc. hours. So let's sink in for a moment. An average 9 to 5 job will cost you 40 hours a week. That means that IGAD will cost you more hours a week than an average job will cost you. Also keep in mind that for the year 2013 there are technically 261 workable days, and if you count up all the days in the blocks of IGAD, it will put you at 180 days. So in other words, if you spend 8 hours a day on IGAD, you will still have to sacrifice some of your free time to increase your chances of graduating, because of course these 1 ECTS is equivalent to 28 hours, although if you can do the work faster or you're more efficient, then of course you can shave off some time left and right, but this is a guide. So, getting past your first year and achieving your P or your proper use. I've said this before, but if you're anything like me, you need to hear it several times more. Get your credits and obtain them by passing your assignments and finishing your courses. That's pretty much the base quest that you have to do in order to get out of IGAD. This is all that matters. Get your credits. You also see that if, this is also taken from the IGAD OER, if every student who still has not passed the propedeutics exam, at the end of the second year of enrollment will receive a negative binding recommendation, and that pretty much is the same thing as GTFO. So get your credits and get them soon. So, getting credits. How do you go about getting credits? Course documentation, course assessments. Lecturers have spent considerable amounts of time putting together all the information of a course in a document, so it will make it a lot easier for you to pass a document. It will tell you what the course is about and what you're there to learn. The information should always be available on NetSchool, so if anything is not present on NetSchool or anything is unclear, always chase down your lecturer and harass him like, hey, I need to know what this course is about, I need to know what's important. In order to pass each course, usually the courses are divided up into assignments or maybe sometimes a theoretical exam, but IGAD is usually very practically focused. In order to pass each course, you will need detailed information on how you need to pass the course, how the assignments will be assessed, how they will be graded. And all this information can usually be found in the course documentation or in an assessment document or otherwise an assignment brief. It is very important that you clearly understand what the assignment asks of you and that you do it well. If you want to do anything above that, above and beyond, that's completely fine, but make sure you always meet the basics of what is asked of you. So, a little example. Once in high school I had to do this fake test where the first sentence, I don't know if you can read all of that, but just read the first one for a second. It says, read everything carefully before doing anything, because this is a can you follow directions test. And you'll notice that the last sentence in the test says, now that you've finished reading everything carefully, do only sentences 1 and 2. There, sentence 2 says, put your name in the upper right hand corner of the paper and you're done. So the gist of this lesson, or the moral of the story is understand very clearly what you need to do before doing it. Because otherwise, if you jump in straight away, you might miss some crucial information. You'll just be wasting your time and you have to redo a lot of stuff. So be informed before you get started. So after you have obtained your propedeutics, so after the first year, there are more years left to follow courses. After now, or by now, after you've obtained your P, it should be pretty clear how to get all those credits, because it's a lot of rinse and repeat. Read the course documentation, understand clearly what it is that you have to do, follow the classes so that you know how to do it. Do your research if anything isn't clear and not told to you in class. Yeah, just keep reading all the documentation, following the criteria, and you should all be fine. But then there are the third and fourth year challenges. A lot of these phases, like the specialization phase, the work placement, and the graduation phase, will also have their documentation, which is what I consulted when making this presentation. This will be an iterative document, so please keep checking back if you get the latest version. Don't just use this presentation or the information here in your third or fourth year. Things may change. This is an evolving course, after all. Or an evolving academy, but yeah, the documentation will tell you what you have to do specifically to get your credits for those phases as well. That will give you a too long didn't read version of these. I know it will take you guys a while to get to this phase, so I will keep the section short, because you can read up on it when you actually get there. In its current form, we will have 3 options for the specialization phase. The options range from A, a thesis, where you have to perform academic research written on a single topic. And it's usually phrased as a question that you have to solve, a very clear, concrete question. You can also do a dissertation, where you have to create a sort of proof of concept supported by literature and studies relating to the project and the subject that you're investigating. Or C, a practical product, which is 80% practical and 20% theoretical, where you have to deliver a final finished product with a short description of the method that you use to produce the product. So this is for the specialization phase. If you have done all that, and oh wait, I'm missing a section there. The bottom section pretty much says create your own plan, get it approved by a supervisor, and establish your own objectives and assessment criteria. So this is how it's different from the courses that you're following. First, you follow all the directions and you execute whatever is thrown at you. But at this point, you will have to learn how to become self-sufficient, autodidactic, learn or teach yourself, train yourself, because the gaming industry is still a very young industry. It's constantly evolving, it's constantly doing new things. And the lecturers cannot possibly keep up with all that's going on. So if there's anything that really interests you, the specialization phase is where you can get up and flap your wings, investigate what's going on, and be really make it your specialization in a sense. So that's pretty much what it says in the bottom thing. Make your own plan, get it approved by a supervisor, and pursue what interests you. If you have done all that and you meet your own assessment criteria, you have obtained another 1 credit, which only leaves the last year left, the work placement and the graduation phase, the last 60 credits. So the work placement is another 30 credits. And in practice, the work placement comes down to perform meaningful work at a company, document your work at the company or keep a journal, and get a statement of satisfaction from the supervisor, company supervisor. This is usually some sort of questionnaire, like how has the student performed, has he done well, considerably well, etc. All these sort of standard questions that the academy, the NHB needs to know about the student at a work placement. The work placement lasts 20 weeks. You'll have to fill out 5 reports, journal reports, 1 each for weeks, 1 each month, to sort of keep track of what you've done, what your problems are, how you've dealt with those problems, what you've learned, etc. You also have to formalize learning objectives at the placement. The work that you do at the work placement isn't only sort of boring executive work. Sometimes you get real responsibility, and all of that should be sort of documented and discussed with your supervisor. But if you have done all these things up to a satisfactory level, then you have just obtained yourself another 30 credits, which leaves the last 30 left. The graduation project. And it looks a little bit like a deja vu, right? Because it's pretty much the same thing as a specialization. However, it is now worth 30 credits, so it will be way more heavily. So we have to produce better work for it. And there are 2 additional options, which are sort of further down into the document, but I've just listed them there. You can also have a prolonged work placement. I know, for example, Chris McEntee, he did a prolonged work placement at Ubisoft Montpellier to work on Rayman. I think there's also Jan Pijpers, who I believe did a prolonged working placement at the Lionhead Studios. But that's an option, but you will have to very clearly state what you are there to do. The project needs to meet the students' learning objectives that you set for yourself, and it may not incorporate normal operation or day-to-day work or business as usual, like cleaning up meshes, optimizing animations that you get from mocap data, for example. It should be meaningful research that you contribute to the company that actually grows the company. Otherwise, it wouldn't be sort of worthwhile enough to be counted as a graduation project. The second choice is, the second of the adoptional options is something that wasn't around when I did my graduation, and that is setting up your own business. If any of you who of you sort of aspire to set up your own business eventually someday? That's quite a lot. I welcome you all into the industry. I love fellow developers, love talking to them. So also afterwards, if you have any questions, just come up and have a chat. But setting up your own business, that's something that is sort of a subject of knowledge of its own. So you can spend your graduation project setting up a business plan that you will then afterwards try to carry out. This will be supported by Gerben Bijeveld. He worked for Starterslift, and Starterslift is a foundation, a governmental foundation that supports entrepreneurs or people that start up their own companies. So that is also an option for your graduation. And if you have also done this to a satisfactory level, then you can consider yourself graduated. So that's sort of all there is to it. Get your credits, do what the assignment tells you to do. If the assignment tells you to make your own plan, do so. If you boil it down to those levels, it sounds pretty doable, right? But there are problems along the way. Problems, probably sort of personal problems that you encounter. Things like, what I notice is that people that got their properties, they get really comfortable and they end up spending maybe 5, 6, sometimes 7 years at IGAD. And it is an option, it is a choice. However, it can also have negative financial implications. So I would highly advise against doing it. Try to get yourself graduated within 4 years. That's the goal. And otherwise, this talk wouldn't be named "How to Graduate in 4 Years," right? So ask yourself how much it would cost you if you had to financially support yourself for another year or another 2 years. Think about the tuition fees that it will cost you. Think about the housing that it will cost you, food and drinks, also going out, the debt that you will be accumulating. Also consider the finance or the money that you won't be making by sitting another year in school, because you're on the job market can sort of earn you a lot of income. So keep all those things in mind and hopefully use that a little bit as an inspiration to get yourself forward. Another one, motivation. Motivation issues are, from what I gathered, fairly common in IGAD as well, especially in the second, third year. Getting yourself over that hurdle of getting started on an assignment, usually because the assignment either looks too daunting, or on the flip side, you know how the assignment is supposed to go, and you don't really see the challenge of doing it because you've already worked it out mentally. It's just getting yourself off the couch or into that productive state instead of just let's postpone it until tomorrow. So how to deal with it? Personally, it worked for me very well to set yourself a very concrete goal. And create an overview of what you need to do in order to get there. Once you know what you need, cut it up into small and achievable chunks of work, small achievable sections, things that you know you can do that don't form that big barrier, that big wall that you have to get over in order to get started. Make it very accessible to yourself. And if you don't know how to get to the end result, start by doing some research, maybe ask a lecturer, or just get started with the parts that you already know and work from there. Also, Google is your friend. So this is a part where, for me, it really helps to just make the large mountain that you're trying to climb, cut it up into really small rocks so that you'll get there gradually. As Henry Ford once said, nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into small jobs. He invented the sort of assembly line to put the Model T cars together in a very high production fashion. And everyone had just a simple, small task, and for them it was really achievable. So just cut it up into a lot of smaller chunks. And if you think you already know how to do something, which could be your barrier, like I don't want to do this particular assignment because I have already worked out how to do it, prove it to yourself. Show it to yourself that you can actually do it. Another one is self-doubt, doubting yourself whether or not you are worthy enough to whatever you're making can compare to any other's work. It comes from comparing yourself with others, and I think that is sort of the core of the problem as well. There's this fear of failing something before you've even started doing it, which has contributed to some of my motivation issues. So be it your immediate surrounding or anything that you see in the media, you project yourself onto whatever you see and you compare yourself to it. And it can be a real problem to get started because you think whatever you may produce cannot possibly compare to what you see out there. And the way I dealt with this is, instead of looking outwards, start looking inwards. How can you improve yourself instead of how can I live up to what's out there? Use your environment and research as an example and inspiration, but don't let it be your competition if you want to grow yourself, if you want to develop yourself. And truthfully, you'll be developing yourself all your life, maybe until you retire, but up to that point you will be constantly learning. What I usually tell myself before I get started on anything is that whatever I'm going to make doesn't need to be anything, and whatever I make will turn out to be crap, and it can only be better than crap if I just start on it. So it will always be better than the lowest possible expectation I have of what it can be. So managing expectations is, for me, a big part of overcoming the obstacle on doubting myself and getting started. More problems. Dealing with stress, for example. Stress is a response from the body to deal with environmental impulses. It is a method for your body to deal with challenge. It sort of triggers the fight or flight response, so it can result your, or it can affect your work positively or negatively. Sometimes you work really well under stress. Other times people lock up when they get under stress. They get the urge to sort of run away and flee. The way I deal with this is getting myself organized. That's why the calendar is there. I don't mind the calendar. Write down what you need to remember and organize it into a sort of a to-do list or a calendar. Organize the folder structure of your schoolwork, and so it becomes really easy that if you need to find something on the last possible moment, that it becomes really easy for you to find. Distribute your workload over the days available to you. Don't postpone all your work until week 6 or 7. If you know what you need to deliver in week 7, cut it up into small chunks and spread it out over your calendar. Constantly, every day, look at your calendar. What should I be doing now? And that will sort of prevent you from week 6 or 7, or just in the exam week, that you have a huge assignment and you only have a few days to do it. And yeah, your body will try to deal with this environmental impulse, and sometimes it will work in your benefit, but sometimes you will lock up and you will fail the course. So this is something you can actually manage. Manage how much is coming at you at a given time. So the way to reduce stress is to manage this and prepare for it. Starting on an assignment the day before the deadline is a lot more stressful than having known about it the entire week, for example. What I personally do is I write all the things that I need to do, for example, assignment A, B, and C. I put that into time slots in my Google Calendar, for example, the 10 o'clock slot, or the 1 o'clock slot, or the 4 o'clock slot. And I constantly get reminded by it, because Google Calendar sends me mails to my Gmail, and I see it on my phone, and I get this reminder, like, oh yeah, I need to be doing this. If I am not able to do it, I just drag it on to the next day, so I'll keep being reminded of that I need to do this. And I just keep on doing this until I checked off all the boxes of the things that I need to do. So this is an example of how my calendar looked in your... Did everyone see this? Sort of. There's just a lot of words there. This calendar was taken from the beginning of my 4th year, I believe. This was also when I was doing the teaching assistant job for 6 months, 2 days a week. I was doing MS specialization and the teaching assistant 2 days a week, and I had 4 gigs that month. So that's a lot of work that comes at you. The way you deal with this is to prepare for it. Know when it's coming, know when your free days are, and spend a little time in your free days preparing for what's coming ahead, so that you won't be sort of snowed in by the amount of work at the very last moment. So get yourself organized, and that's the way to deal with stress. More problems. Confusion or misinformation. A couple of times before I've encountered students that fail an assignment because they don't know what's being asked of them. Or that students at one point knew the criteria that was asked of them, but it has taken a different shape in their head as time went along. So dealing with this is also pretty easy and straightforward, and it's staying up to date in course documentation. What I did is at the start of each block, I updated all my course documents, and I kept doing this every week because the lectures aren't perfect either. They will change things, they will upload things at the last moment. Just make sure that you stay updated on what's out there and that you know what's coming at you. So to avoid confusion, get organized in that aspect as well. Anything else? Yeah, additionally, before submitting an assignment, always put it next to the assessment criteria. I did it myself a few times as well. That you've been working 2 days really hard on your assignment, and then at the very last moment you figure out that when you place it next to the assignment criteria, there are a lot of things that aren't quite the same thing, because you've gotten the impression from all the lecturers and all the students talking about the assignment that your assignment criteria have been skewed. So always consult the assessment criteria right before you deliver and see if everything matches up. More problems, procrastination. Procrastination is where you postpone doing important things in favor of doing other things. Suddenly your desk looks awfully messy and you need to clean it up right away. Or there's some laundry that still needs either doing or folding. It's been bothering you in the back of your mind. Or you suddenly see that stack of dirty dishes that looks a lot more appealing than it did before. So how to deal with this? How I dealt with this is creating a productive space. A space without any distractions, or as few distractions as possible. Screenshot here, for example, is what I do is I open up a tab in my, my Chrome browser and I overlay it on top of all the other millions of tabs that I still need to leave in there to remind myself of things. So if you open up an empty browser window on top of all the millions of tabs, then you will have a lot less of distraction as you consult your browser for information, Google stuff, or whatever. So that is one way to also limit the amount of distractions. And if you manage to create this productive space, you will sometimes get into this kind of zone, this productive workflow. I don't know if it sounds familiar to anyone or if I'm just talking mumbo jumbo again. But for me, if I create a very sort of productive environment with a few distractions, I get work done so incredibly fast that I sort of lose track of time, and that will only help you when you are not really feeling up to getting work done. So the moments that you can get work done, try to make it as easy as possible for yourself. Also have a pen and paper ready or a notepad or whatever, that if someone calls or something comes up that you should not forget, that you have to do right away after you've done your assignment or whatever. Yeah, have a pen and paper ready, notepad, just write it down like a checklist. Don't forget to call mom or get a present for a birthday tomorrow. Don't immediately start doing it, just keep writing it down and keep track of the things that you have to do. Because if you also have to remember all of those things while you're doing creative stuff or while you're doing productive stuff, it can sort of form a limitation or sort of form a barrier to really getting productive. So get everything out of your head, clear your mind, create a productive space, get in the zone, and do the work that you're supposed to do. So this is the graduation cheat sheet. It's sort of the lines that I think if you follow those up, you'll do pretty well in the end. So understand what you need to do in order to pass a course, assignment, or phase. Do what you think is best within the constraints of the above assessment criteria. I've had it sometimes as well that I continuously wonder what the lecturer wants me to hand in. And it can sometimes put barriers or blocks around how cool the assignment could be. So do what you think is best, but always stay within the criteria of what is asked of you, because then the lecturer cannot possibly fail you because you meet all the criteria, right? Then meet or exceed the assessment criteria as they are posed to you. Create an overview of what you need to do, get organized. Cut your assignment up into smaller pieces and start working on it early, not the last possible moment. And don't compare yourself to others and strive to be a better you, so look inwards instead of outwards. So some useful resources I've consulted when making this presentation is there's this high-level resource called the IGAD OER for the people that just don't join in later. It stands for the Open Educational Resources. Every higher education needs to make this available so that people know what the course is about and how everything works. This is where I get a lot of the information from, like the ECTS, how many hours is equivalent to one ECTS, for example. You also have the mid-level, the IGAD handbook, which should be on NetSchool. Give it a read. There might be some information in there that you do not know about. Some low-level documentation. That's all in NetSchool. So course documentation, assessment criteria, files that are that relate to your course, assessment weight, how heavy an assignment weighs, if you can combine the weight of the grades together, that sort of thing should all be there. If it's not there, just harass your lecturer until it's there. So, time for a question and answer session, and also time for some plugging of information. I'm having a competition with my program who can get the most Twitter followers. So I would really like to use this opportunity to get a head start on him. So give me a follow, otherwise like Accessible Studio on Facebook to be informed of our upcoming projects. We're also releasing this Wednesday a small bank here for both the Android and iOS. And if there is some time left, which I think there is, I'm very open to questions. So who has any? Who has done their first block without or in flying colors? Who hasn't had any problem with the first block so far? And any of the problems I mentioned, does it sound familiar? Already, it will only get worse. The workload will yes. Especially if you let things pile up into second year, third year, it will only become worse because you will have to chase down your assignments and you're not on track of your assignment. Is anyone with any more questions? Otherwise, we might be able to start. Yeah. Is it possible to have like a social life besides? The question is it possible to have a social life beside IGAD? I definitely think there is, even though I did the VJing on the side or the side job as a teaching assistant and all the schoolwork. I still have plenty of time to hang out with friends. However, you have to prioritize things. I mean, don't go out if it will either affect your work, your schoolwork, or your financial work. Just make sure that you get your priorities straight. But yeah, sure, you still do have a social life. Sorry. I'll talk to Karina, and I think she can put it up. So sure.
When you started here at IGAD, were you using Maya or as
when I started here at IGAD, we're already used to Maya. I tried using Maya in order to sort of persuade Andrew Briquette to let me into the VA course, and tried to give myself a crash course. I wasn't as proficient at it when I started Maya. I was pretty horrible, to be truthful, I was pretty horrible at anything that IGAD taught me here. Back then, the IGD course just accepted its first students. So, just before summer, the first batch of graduates got out, and the criteria for acceptance were still a bit low then. So, I didn't know many of the packages like Photoshop, Illustrator, Maya, 3ds Max, anything that I've learned here right now. So there's still hope. Yeah.
What exactly is your function within the Sassybot studio?
The technical term I have is game designer and creative, but I pretty much do all the videos, the art, I do the music, the sound effects, designing games, concepting, prototyping. I really do wear all the hats, or wear most of the hats. I make sort of prototypes that are really not very optimal in terms of code, but it conveys the idea, and then I pass it off to my programmer, and he can make the thing run a lot more efficiently. I'll get back to you. I'll ask another question.
Yeah, how many people are at Sassybot?
At the moment, there are 3 full-time employees, and 2 are sort of on non-active because they're still following courses here at IGAD. But we have Thomas Buitenweg, he is a designer. We have Tuki Clavero, she is also a designer. They both worked on the game Atum. There's Johnny G. Mills, he is programming, also does most of the business and marketing aspect. And we have Albert Verbrugge, our lead programmer, who calls himself Captain Code Monkey for some reason. And then there's me. I do, most of the time I concern myself with art, but also public relations, also partially marketing. I just jump in wherever it's needed, really.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on getting hired by a company for your work project?
Any tips on getting hired for a company in the future? I think that comes down to knowing the right people and getting your resume out there. So it is a mix between providing good work or making sure that your work is up to standard. And then second of all, letting people know that your stuff is up to standard. Because you can have the most brilliant portfolio around, but if no one's able to find it, then the work doesn't get passed around. So also try to work a bit on your networks as you get along into your course. And I'll get back to you. Yeah?
How many hours do you roughly work a week? And if you don't mind me asking, what do you make a month?
How many hours do I roughly work a week, and how much do I make a month? The last thing is unfortunately confidential. We've set it up into our partnership contract to not mention this. And how much hours I work roughly a week, that's at least 40 hours a week. And I think it's actually documented by law that you cannot work more than 60 hours a week. But the quota that I set for myself is at least 40 hours, preferably more.
What did you do before IGAD?
What did I do before IGAD? When I got out of high school, I first started doing a PE teaching academy in The Hague called the Hallo. I did that for 6 months, and I found out that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I still had to pass some grades, but it just didn't. It didn't speak to me. So then I pursued my other passion, which was game development. I really had a passion for games, and even when I grew up in elementary school, when the question got passed around, like, what do you want to be later? You hit the fireman, or an astronaut, or an actor, and I said, I want to make games. So here I am, I'm making games. And after I dropped out of the PE teaching academy, I spent 1.5 years working at a stairlift company. So we place stairlifts on stairs for elderly people to move around in their house so they can stay there instead of going into an elderly home. And that really helped me get into the sort of spend at least 40 hours a week on your job kind of mentality, the full-time mentality. And it definitely helped me here in IGAD. Yeah?
Let me rephrase the question in a way you might be able to answer. Are you able to financially support yourself and perhaps also take a vacation in the summer?
Yes, I am able to financially support myself.
Thank you.
How many vacations can I take? No, I won't answer that.
If you're in a situation that you think that you can't handle the workload, it might push you down.
Yes, if you get into a situation where you cannot handle the workload, there may be solutions to that you have to think about before it becomes too much, and that is spreading out your work. That is something I cannot recommend highly enough. It's so easy to postpone work, but you will hit yourself in the head when the time comes that you have to do your work. So just spend more time on study planning. I think Karina later on, or I think in the third block, you also get some study planning courses. Pay attention there, and yeah, take all that advice and use it for your own benefit.
Wasn't the dropout rate kind of like intimidating or sad when you look around and you go like, whoa, one of my classmates in physics, he's gone.
Yeah, the dropout rate is pretty severe in IGAD. As I mentioned before, the criteria of the industry are also pretty high standard. So if you're not good enough for the industry, then IGAD has done a bad job preparing you for it, in a sense.
I know, but it's kind of like intimidating. You just want to perform above yourself and be inside that small group of people who do that.
That's very true. If you want to improve on yourself in order to get into that sort of elite section of the best performing students. But I think if you go into your assignments with that mindset, it can only form barriers in a sense. You sort of have to convince yourself that whatever you're doing is not so extremely important that it will form a fence around you in terms of what you're trying to do. I think it can influence you negatively sometimes, but at least for me it has done so. Next question?
Do you have any goals set up right now? Do you have the flexible studio and anything you still want to do in the gaming studio?
Well, what we now want to do is grow the company, to be honest. We have a few more projects that we want to explore, because this game is now on Android and iOS. The next project we're working on is a sort of standalone game for PC platforms. And a lot of doors open if you have a lot more resources available to you. So we have a lot more things that we want to try to explore. And you know, I graduated just before summer, so there's still a few years to go before I look at the horizon and see what's next. Yeah, always keep a lookout for what might interest you later on. Yeah?
What's your opinion about traveling to school from let's say Eindhoven, so 1.5 hour travel, what about working beside school?
So what is my opinion of traveling from and to school and doing work beside school? I used to live in a very small village right between Rotterdam and Utrecht, and it cost me about 2 hours to get to Breda and 2 hours back, so I had a part-time job traveling. And you can do so much time in the additional time that you free up from not going back and forth, so I think you can, unless you are really productive in the training, I'm not quite sure, but I think you can spend that time better. And if you're open to getting a room here in Breda, I think you will see the benefits of it if you think about how much time you will have left for yourself. On a side note, it will also help you become more independent. Eventually you'll have to sort of live on your own anyways. It's just good practice to see, at least now that you still have a safety net probably, it's a good practice to see how it works living on your own. And the second question was?
What about work?
What about work? Some people manage to have a job on the side during the IGAD, the IGAD career. Some of the people don't manage to do this. I think this is a pretty personal issue. If you can cope with the job on the side, then please do so. Because you can try to increase your workload as much as you can now while it's still relatively safe. And if you get out there in the real life, then you won't have as many safety nets anymore. So this is the time to try out all these things. Just make sure that you get your priorities straight of what's most important to you.
So have you set up with Accessible, have you set up your own studio yet?
Yeah, so with Accessible Studio, we've set up our own company. We did this, we started setting up the company in our third year, and we very slowly but steadily just set up the foundations, like what should the name be, what should we be doing, we need a website for this, we need the information to be on the website. Just get all the foundations in check, contact the KVK to register your company. Very slowly but steadily we put bits and bobs of work in there, and once we finally got graduated, we could, we could hit the ground running in a sense.
So I think like we have an office now already.
The office, we're still looking for an office, but that's something also an immediate goal that we have to pursue. A central working location where we can invite clients or just designers that love to talk or hang around or come by for coffee. I would love it if that would happen anytime soon. Why the name Accessible? I think it reflects the team pretty well. We have very sassy aspects, very joyful, exuberant. We also have the technical side that is very factual, get things done the way they're supposed to be doing. I think it reflects both sides of the team pretty well. So that's the reason behind it.
Did you get a lot of sleep during your 4 years?
Did I get a lot of sleep during my 4 years? There were moments that I literally was up for 2 days in order to, well, first I had someone come over, so I couldn't really sort of, chase that person off in order to do schoolwork. And then the second night I had this really big deadline for the Friday, so I worked myself to actually do the assignment as well. Personally, I don't need that much sleep each night. This may vary for others. Just listen to your own body, what it needs, and how much you can deal with. I'm not endorsing any amnesia or sleeplessness or whatever you need to keep going. Just listen to your own body and do what it tells you to do. Yes, so Small Bang Theory is a game that you play on mobile devices. It's an action arcade game that you can take on your own. In it you race an atom through a particle accelerator. You try to avoid the lethal atoms that you can collide with. Along the way you can pick up points, increase in speed, slow down in speed. Use power-ups to either stay alive for longer or use power-ups to chain up a multiplier score. And in the end, you can see if your score compares to your friend's score, for example. So it's a pretty small snack-sized game, but for our first commercial title, we're pretty pleased with it. Do we have time for more questions? All right, one more question. I see that his thing is slightly higher than yours.
You're talking about specializations. What kinds should we be thinking about?
So I was talking about specializations and what kinds should you be thinking about. Usually you ask yourself a pretty concrete question of what you want to know more about, and you make it so incredibly concrete that it becomes unambiguous as to what you need to learn more about. Because if you ask yourself a pretty vague question, then you will have to go through great lengths to actually answer that question for yourself. So usually it comes down to posing yourself a question and answering it either by doing a thesis, so a full written document, either by doing a dissertation, so make a proof of concept and write about it, or doing a sort of a finished product and write down your method on how you made it. There are also, I think, this wasn't the case when I was doing IGAD, but at the moment there are also research questions that IGAD lecturers write down, or the research department here at NHTV. to give you an impression of other things that you could be researching during a specialization phase, if anything appeals to you. So there is some assistance in that section as well. I believe that was it. Thank you all for spending your